webinar with my favorite company, Unplag. And as I shared with you last time, it's my favorite company for several reasons. One, first and foremost, the Ukrainian connection. So those of you who know me know that I was born in Ukraine, and Unplag is a Ukrainian company, so that makes it my favorite right there. But also, there is another very important reason. Unplag is a company that basically caters to academia. So students and professors are their clients. And so that makes it much more relevant to us, to me personally, unlike other companies that have products that are targeting general population. Unplag is specifically our own provider. So all of us, all the people here in the audience, I guess, watching later, we potentially can be Unplag clients. And so that makes it a little more personal for us. And so today we have the second webinar, and it's going to be a little different than the first one. In the first one, as you remember, we did only the introduction of the company. So we talked about the company, about the product, about the challenge, and then allowed some time for asking questions and answers. And we may do a little introduction today just for those of you who are watching it for the first time, who haven't had a chance to watch the recording of the old webinar, so you know what the company does. But then we will switch to a different mode, and we will share with the company that work that the students, the teams in the early track have already done. And so the question will be, or the purpose will be, to receive feedback from the CEO of the company, so that the early track students, while they still have about 2 weeks before the project ends, can use this feedback and maybe revise or improve their own work before they have to submit it. And then for those of you who are from the late track, who are just starting now, again, it will be some sort of a guide as to what others have already thought of. Are those good ideas or bad ideas, and how you can maybe use them in your own work and maybe do it even better. So if that's okay with you, Anastasia, if that's okay, maybe you can do a very quick introduction of the company and the products, because some of the people here watching now, both on YouTube and in the webinar room here, are probably students who just started a few days ago and they haven't done anything yet. And I even suspect many of them haven't watched the first webinar, and so they may not know much about the company. So if you can maybe tell us a little bit about your product and maybe a few words about the challenge.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So Unplag, it's a plagiarism detection software. It's pretty new one, introduced into US market maybe about 1 year, and is about 2 years old. We target various markets. We target European markets. We target UK. We also target United States. And we offer software both for K-12 and higher education. The problems that we presently face, I think that all the new companies that go to the market might face those problems. So initially, they are related to the problem that there are there are a few companies on the market, for example, like Turnitin, that were used by academia for the last 10 to 15 years, somewhere for the last 20 years. And for a lot of institutions and for a lot of schools, there is no different types of software rather than Turnitin. And they are not sure that the other type of software actually exists. And they also have a habit of using Turnitin. So it's very, very complicated for a new product to be introduced into the market, because Turnitin right now, which is our competitor, it's a very habit-forming product. We also initially started as an online company. We do not have a lot of resources in the world, so we do not have an option to go to educations and make direct sales. We do not have an option to physically attend schools and physically attend universities. And so we initially started with online marketing activities, but it turned out that standard marketing channels, they are not really working for academia, because our target audience, which is the for example, the principal in the school, or the head of English department in the school, or the head of educational technology department within the university, they are not available in the regular channels. And so they're not, for example, when we speak about B2B sales, a lot of the sales can happen from LinkedIn, or a lot of sales can happen from some channels. But academia, it's it's different. So in academia, what mostly works is recommendation. And because we're a new company on the market, it's very complicated for us to get an initial pool of customers, of clients who might recommend Unplug, who might speak on the name of Unplug. So we are right now striving to get the needed connections to show that Unplug is a great software, that the support is awesome, that we are ready to invest our time and efforts to making a better product. But still we are having hard time finding the right contacts. And also because the company is new, there is still no trust, because when you're an institution, when you have several thousands of students and you have 500 academic staff, 800 academic staff, it's very tricky to switch to a new software, because you don't know how it's going to work and you cannot let the campus down. So this is in short about Unplug and the problems that we faced when introducing a product into the market. But I think that, like I have mentioned, these problems, most of the new companies who would like to change something, they face it, just in short.
Yep, thank you so much. So those of you who know what Turnitin is, Unplug is just like Turnitin, just newer, better, and cheaper. So, and they also are experimenting, last time it was shared with us, with artificial intelligence, and maybe eventually we'll even have a product that will be qualitatively different and better than what, for example, Turnitin can offer. Any questions before we get to the feedback? I see we have quite a few people here in the audience. If you have any questions, just unmute your microphone, ask a question, and we'll engage in the discussion. Now, any of you are willing to present? Just again, I'm not recognizing the names of the people who signed up to do the presentations, but again, if you want to present, send me a message and we'll work with that. Let's do the following now then, if there are no questions. We will go question by question. I have the last week's submissions from all the teams, and we have 5 or 6 teams from the early track that are working on Unplug. It's a small track, so it's only about 600 students total. And so it's only about 6 teams, I believe, that chose Unplug. And so the late track, the big one with about 3,500 people started this week. And so that's where we will see some real numbers. But we do have the submissions from the early track students. And so last week they had to submit a complete draft. And so we have those answers. And if it's okay with you, Anastasia, I will give you the answers that they are giving us so far. And the question will be, could you comment and tell us if it's a good idea, bad idea? Maybe some of them you tried and you know they won't work. Maybe some of them are interested and more teams should focus on that. They still have about 2 weeks to work on the project. And so whatever you tell now, they can use and incorporate before they submit the final report. So
yeah, sure, absolutely.
So the first question was, or request was, to conduct a survey of the industry. And so the teams were suggested as an option, but kind of recommended that they try to survey the key stakeholders in this industry. So the idea was that they would literally talk maybe to teachers, maybe to administrators, maybe to friends, students, and ask them if they use any plagiarism detection software. If so, how did they choose the one that they use? Have they heard anything about Unplug? What would it take them to switch to this company? So all kinds of questions just to get a sense as to how this industry works and what people or potential customers may think about the company and what would it take to get them switched to Unplug. And so here I think there will be not much feedback, it's just an update that I'm looking at the numbers, and pretty much every single team did some surveys. There was one team that did surveyed only 7 people, but there was, for example, one team, Team 98, they surveyed 173 people. And so they say they surveyed students at different universities, University of Toronto, Georgia, Gwinnett College, Georgia, Kimep University in Kazakhstan. So they have a survey of a fairly large sample in 3 different countries. And so they provide some answers here. And then other teams have 70 people surveyed, 36 people surveyed, 7 people surveyed, 6 professors surveyed. So I guess I will just have a quick question for you, Anastasia. So when they do all that survey and ask all those questions, I assume all they need to do is just give you some sort of averages and some sort of a data summary, or you have a specific request as to how those data should be presented to you?
I think that a data summary would be fine. Absolutely.
maybe what we'll try to do later on is to put it all together, because we provided questions that students, were recommended to ask. And I think given that some of the samples are fairly large, in fact, as I said, some teams have up to 200 people, and we will probably have 10 times as many teams working on the challenge in the late track. So we will have quite a big data set. And so maybe we'll try to put it all together, have one massive data set, which will give us much more details as to, what's going on in the company here.
It would be also good to separate it by country, because in different countries, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And yes, it's also a good recommendation for the teams. We will definitely separate on our end, but if you guys surveyed people in different countries, like Team 98, so Canada, I see the United States, different states in the United States, Kazakhstan. So obviously, if you can give the numbers by country, because the answers may be very different, it would be very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Then next question was to conduct basically a competition analysis and tell us what the students think are the strengths and weaknesses of Unplag. And I'll just read some of the answers here, and I'm curious to see what you have to say. As far as the strengths, most of them are more or less the same, and it's something that everybody would expect. Like, for example, product quality is good, technical support is excellent, pricing is much lower than what Turnitin and other competitors charge, and that's a big plus. Many say that it's nice that the company is private, and they see that as a strength because you are a little more flexible, a little more, have more freedom. So once you become public, then all the decisions have to be approved by the board of trustees or directors, and so it becomes a little bit more difficult to make changes. So let me see what other efficiency. Your artificial intelligence comment caught attention, and many people say that it's good that you are experimenting with those things, and if it works eventually, it's great. Agility and ability to make changes quickly. What would be your response to these strengths? Are those things that you think are strengths of the company, or do you have any?
Yeah, absolutely. So these are some, what you have mentioned, we already use them in our messages to potential customers. And what I would also like to mention is that we have started monitoring Twitter, and right now we monitor all comments left by students who use Turnitin, and we track the problems that Turnitin students actually have. So maybe for the last 5 to 6 months, we see there's a lot of problem with uploading the files and with the system running check. So for example, in Unplag, it takes maybe about 5 to 8 seconds to check one-page document, and right now with Turnitin, sometimes it takes up to 5 to 6 hours, and we see students not being able to upload their document just in time. So what we also make accent on is that students, they are going to feel safer at Unplag. And also one of the differences is that when you work with Turnitin, both students and instructors, they need to have their own accounts inside Turnitin. With Unplag, the experience is different. So, for example, when some product is migrating to Unplag and there is a learning management system in the university, there is no need to create separate instructor accounts and student accounts inside Unplag. So this saves a lot of efforts, this saves a lot of time, and the migration process itself is much easier. And the way, as long as the student can access the learning management system, he can submit the document to us. So this happens much more quicker. So basically the learning management system, they send us the file directly and we push the report back. With Turnitin, it happens in a little bit different way. So students have to log in and it's given the problems.
Okay, Xculture uses Turnitin. One of the reasons for that is because that's what my university uses, as well as we actually have our access to Turnitin paid for by the University of New South Wales in Australia. One of our professors made some arrangements there, and so that is the school that gives us the access. But it is true that it takes several hours for Turnitin to process the submissions. In fact, it takes about 5-6 hours before we get the plagiarism report on the reports of the length that we have in Xculture, about 30 pages. And yes, it is also true that you have to create accounts, and it's a little like we have one whole page of instructions on how to create an account and submit a paper to Turnitin. It eventually works. I mean, we are happy happy with it. But yes, it does have some limitations, and if a different company could solve them, that would be a big advantage. Now, weaknesses. So let me read what the students list here as weaknesses of Unplag, and I'm curious to hear, and I'm sure they are curious to hear your feedback and comments on that. So some say that Unplag still has a very difficult access. And so they say that some of the things are still a little difficult to use, and they wish it was even more streamlined. And in fact, 3 teams talked about that, and they have specific recommendations as to how it can be streamlined. I'm not going to go in those details now. Every single company or team mentioned the name. As I said, I like the name, seems logical to me, but every single team says that, no, we don't like the way it sounds, and they have a number of recommendations here. So one team says, for example, Team 31, Unplag sounds not very attractive and lacks creativity. And so rebranding would be recommended, especially for English language countries, whatever that means. Let me see what other teams say in terms of the weaknesses. Not many, actually. So I would say that, they're fairly positive comments overall. Limited capital. So the company would have been in a much better position if you had a major investor, so you can enter new markets. As they explain here, it's Team 92. They say that you have a wonderful product, and your only problem is that people don't know about you. And so limited capital may prevent you from being able to promote your company the way it should be done. And as a result, you may lose some customers just because they don't know about you. Another weakness they list, small client base. Again, they say that when we approached some of the principals and talked about your company, the immediate question was, who else uses the company or the product? And since we couldn't list many, it seemed like they were not as impressed as they would have been otherwise. So apparently they want to see that others use it, so as a way of maybe insurance of the quality, I guess. And then small sales teams. So it would be much more effective to approach each potential client in person. And obviously you don't have the resources to do that. And so that is a weakness compared to some other bigger companies. What would be your response to those listed weaknesses?
I would say that these problems, we face them every other day. So this is what we are trying to overcome. So for example, when speaking to schools, right, and there is not a lot of buzz about Unplag, but we also try to approach them for the free testing, for example, or a pilot project for 6 months. And for some schools, we are even offering for 1 year for free, which we can afford to grant them the free access to the software. But the thing that we faced is that a lot of them, they are just not interested. So sometimes it feels like plagiarism is not really a huge problem, or they do not have enough time and sources to test the system and use something even if it's for free. But yeah, the problems that you have listed, we face them every day, every single day.
I agree. Now, we're getting into more technical stuff here, and I'm very, very interested to hear your feedback. So next question was markets. Select the most promising market. And I remember when we spoke last time, you said we are not really interested that much in some markets because they are already populated by other competitors. And then some other ones, we believe they're too small or maybe too remote and stuff like that. But I'm looking at the answers provided by the students now, and pretty much every single team say that they believe the United States should be your main target. And the reason they say that, yes, while everybody here uses already some sort of a software and one from your competitors, it's the home to the largest number of universities, and we're talking about tens of thousands, as well as schools. And in the United States, it is required by law that we do check all the submissions for plagiarism. And then at the same time, with all the budget cuts to education, many universities, especially private universities, but also many schools, are looking for ways to cut cost. And if you approach them and said that you have a comparable, in terms of the quality, comparable product at a lower price, even though most will probably say no, even if it's only a small percentage that says yes, it will still be a large number of clients. And then, so the United States, everybody says that it's a good market. And then a number of teams also suggest other markets, like, for example, Mexico or Kazakhstan. And the reason they say that is because they say we did the survey, And so the principals of the schools or the deans of the business schools say that, yes, we need to do something or use something. We don't use anything now, or what we use we're not very happy with. And we are looking for the lowest price with an acceptable quality. And so what these students, like for example, Team 98, they explain that even though the market is not as big, but at the same time, there is not much competition yet. And at the same time, your strength, like lower price, for example, is much more important to them than your weaknesses, like for example, little brand recognition. And so they say, we think you should also try some of those kind of developing countries that are trying to do it right and trying to check the plagiarism, all the submissions. But unlike the United States or Canada or Australia, they haven't been in this system for a long time, and they don't feel like they're married or, to Turnitin or other competitors who've been around longer. So what would be your response to that, both in terms of the United States as a recommended market, but also those less developed, kind of newer countries in the academic world?
Yeah, this is aligned with our strategy. So right now, the US is the main market for us, and that's what we are trying to do there. And like I've mentioned, that because of the pricing, because of the budget cuts, we are aware of these problems. And in terms of the other markets, of the emerging markets, for example, in South America, we are right now looking for partners who could introduce us into the market, because we do not have a huge sales force. So we are looking for a partner that is already working in education. So this can be people from the learning management system, or someone helping to integrate or providing some technical services to the university who could speak on our name and make an introduction. So absolutely, I agree with this.
And that actually brings us to the next question, which is the entry mode and distributors. So the question, those of you who haven't seen the challenge, basically is identify the people who make the decisions, and then identify the best way to be present in the country so that you can effectively promote the product. And so the options for you, if you don't know what entry modes are, the options would be from all the way from creating your own subsidiary in the country and hiring your own personnel. That would be the most expensive, the most risky approach, versus something very limited like exporting, direct exporting, where there is nobody in the country. All the communication goes online basically, and so people just go online to unplag.com, click on the link, maybe request a demo first, or maybe subscribe right there, and so you basically work directly with the clients. But when I'm looking at the recommendations provided by the teams, so most of them believe that it would be most efficient to go with exporting, so there is no need to establish any company or any subsidiary in the markets that they recommend. But at the same time, almost all of them say that there should be some sort of a way to talk to the principals or deans or teachers or even students in person. And so they recommend all kinds of apparently commission-based arrangements where you would have people on the ground who are not exactly your employees per se, but they kind of serve like your ambassadors. So a number of teams here, like for example, number 13, team 13 provides all kinds of recommendations as to how you can recruit literally students or your current users and offer them either some sort of bonuses or some sort of commission or some sort of other incentives, and make it interesting for them to sell the product to their friends, to their teachers, or at least mention it. And again, I'm not sure how easy it would be to do, but they seem to have a strategy here and provide quite a lot of details about that. Team 31 talks about, again, like local ambassadors, again, not employees, but more like company friends, representatives. A number of teams here talk about also online presence. And so what they're talking about is Twitter, Facebook presence, and allowing students to have a discussion place or maybe tweet about their experience with the hope that their friends will see and then will kind of know, okay, my friend is using Unplugged, maybe I should too. Let me see if I'm missing anything here. There is one more interesting comment, but I want to talk about that one separately because it's a big one. So, but would like to get your feedback on what we just said. So direct exporting, maybe with some sort of commission-based ambassadors or employees. What are your takes on that?
This is also aligned with our strategy, absolutely, because for the partners that we are looking for in the regions, those are the partners with the sales force. Those are people who can go and speak and make the introduction. So we are not looking for companies that only have the online presence. We are looking for people who can go and speak because we do not have this option. So, and in terms of the online presence, I'm not sure why comment was given about students, for example, tweeting about the product, because the target audience are not really the students, but the corporate clients, the schools and the universities, and I'm not sure if they're going to see it. But in terms of online presence in the countries where we are looking for the partners, so we also have this in the to-do list, because right now we have a website available in English, I think German, French, Spanish, and probably that's it right now. And because we would love to build presence in the other regions, we will have to take care about the website, and it's being translated to different languages, and also make search engine optimization. And in terms of Twitter and Facebook, on Facebook, there is not much activity going on, because I would say professors or chiefs or CTOs, they are not of the universities, they are not usually present on Facebook, because this is social network mostly for younger people. And in terms of the Twitter, I can say that we do track all the activities that is related to what's the alternative to Turnitin, what are the plagiarism checkers and also related, we also track all the competitors and what's happening with them and how people speak about them. So we do this activity.
Yeah. One thing I don't see, and I was kind of hoping that some teams will be able to identify it, is ways to reach the deans of schools, of business schools especially, but also maybe other disciplines. And so the reason I personally would recommend trying to explore that option is it is usually the deans who make that decision. Usually we have separate budgets for the different units on campus, schools or faculty, as they sometimes called in some languages. And so the decision makers are not even teachers, but the school administrators. So for us, and by school I mean the university unit. Likewise, if it's principals of schools where you have younger children, so same thing. It would be usually the decision would be made either at the level of the principal, or maybe at the level of the county, like my kids go to the Guilford County schools, so that would be the county in which we live. And I think they do use Turnitin at this time, and I would not be surprised if the budget the purchasing decisions are made at the county level, not at the school level. And so the problem with that audience, with those decision makers, principals, deans, county administrators, is that they're not really on Facebook, they're not really going to the conferences. Professors go to conferences, but administrators don't. And so how do you reach them? And so my understanding is, in fact, I have absolutely no doubt that there are one special periodicals for those kinds of people. Like I have no doubt that there would be some sort of like a magazine or some sort of like a newsletter that goes to all deans of all business schools, like for example, all ASB accredited business schools in the United States probably have some sort of a dean association, and probably have some sort of a newsletter or email or magazine or something that goes out to them all the time with information about, I don't know, accreditation and latest news and stuff like that. And I suspect it's a very targeted.
I can say that there is a consortium for private institutions. Yeah, and we already know the website and the options that they offer.
That's for the United States?
Yeah.
Yeah. So as I said, I'm sure there is something like that, and I'm sure there is something like that for other countries as well. And because it's a very simple, very relatively small audience, but at the same time, it's not something that many people are interested in. I suspect that getting access to either that mailing list or maybe, like buying some advertisement, like half a page in that periodical that goes out, it shouldn't be too expensive. And so what I'm hoping for is that students will go and talk to the deans at their schools, whatever country you may be, and ask, like, if I had to reach you or your colleagues, what would be the best way? And I will not. Yeah, go ahead.
I can give you an idea about the costs. So getting one page advertisement in some educational and not top magazine costs around $10,000 just for one page, just in one edition. That's it.
What I'm thinking about is something different. Like, for example, for all of the business professors, we have the Academy of Management. And for those of us who are in international business, we have the Academy of International Business. And both academies have a mailing list. And in order to send a message through that mailing list, anyone can send a message. The only thing is that there is a moderator for each of the lists, and they look at the content of the message and make sure that it's something that would be of interest to us, the professors. In your case, your message is definitely related to education. So I'm pretty sure that the moderators, if it was the right list, like, as I said, either deans or maybe some sort of, other professional association, something's telling me the moderators, if there is a list like what we have for professors, they would let it through. And if so, then every single person in the country who is member of that association will get your message, and it will cost you absolutely zero. Like if you had to advertise to professors, and as I said, we have better audience because we don't make those decisions. But if you needed to reach all international business professors, you would just send your message to AAB list at aab.com or .org, I believe, .org. And so that would be free. And as long as Charles Wankel, who is managing that mailing list, approves it, which he probably would because, as I said, it is related to education, it goes out to every single one of us all around the world, and it will cost you absolutely nothing. And so, as I said, I suspect there must be something like that for deans, if not in all countries, then at least in some, where it's either completely free or almost free, and at the same time reaches the needed audience. And so what I hope is that there are channels like that available out there. We just don't know about them. And hopefully some of the students will bring and say, oh, by the way, like, I don't know, in Mexico, for example, that's the list, for all the principals in the country. And I'm not sure if such exists, but, if it does, somebody is bound to know about it. And that's what I hope you will find. So I don't know, maybe I'm just wishful thinking, but
that would be really, really great. But so far, I have to tell that for the last maybe 15 years that I'm working in the IT, I have never seen any list that would be available for free, or someone willing to send an email letter, for example, to his list that would be available for free, because everyone wants to make money. So this is the reason.
All I can say that, for example, X Culture, right? So, well, we are not a commercial project, so we are more a partnership. So we never spent a single penny on our advertisement, and yet every single professor of international business in the world, or at least the ones who are more active and are members of the Academy of International Business, know about us. And the way we advertise, the only channel we use is the Academy of International Business mailing list. And so every time I send it, it's like 13,000 professors around the world, and it just goes automatically to each one of them. And so everybody who needs to know knows, and we don't really need to use any other channels, because it's hard to imagine anyone who teaches international business at kind of serious level and is not in some way a member of the Academy, or at least not subscribed to their mailing list. So as I said, I suspect there should be something like that for your business product, and because it's so educational, so academic, I think it should be qualified not as advertisement, but as service. And if so, it probably, again, I may be wrong about that particular industry, but I'm just saying how it works for us, and I don't see why it should be different for Unplugged.
Would you excuse me for a second? I'll take a charger because my Mac is dying. Thank you.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, while we're waiting, you guys in the audience, if you have any questions, or if you would like to make any comments, or maybe run an idea by the presenter, by Anastasia, so feel free to unmute your microphone and share your thoughts and get your feedback.
Is there something that they can share to, like, LinkedIn or something?
Yes. So I assume, Christopher, you're a new student, right, from the late track?
Yeah.
So if you go to the challenge instructions, which is on the xculture.org/2017-1B, when you download that PDF file, there will be a link first to the page, the company page. But I think there is also a link, or there are links there to the LinkedIn and Facebook and whatever other platforms they're present at. So I'm sure there are, the links are there, and so you should be able to find more information.
And
But
so
while we're waiting, let me check just to make sure that it's there, and if not, maybe we'll ask the presenter.
I mean, is there studies about Unplugged that you can share to, like, LinkedIn?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. So I'm looking at the challenge. So yeah, it seems like it only provides a link to the company page. But let me see if they have on the company page, if they have any information about. Actually, they don't. So it's a good question. So let's see why not. And that's oh no, at the bottom of the company page, Anastasia, we're talking about your social presence. Christopher here asked about your LinkedIn page or something else. And so I see that on your unplug.com at the bottom of the page. In fact, let me show you that. So at the bottom of the page, they have links to Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google, YouTube, and I have no idea what this is, the two things, so it must be one of the platforms. So it seems like they're not only present in all of those places, but also the links are available on the company website.
I can reply in terms of statistics. When you're not an entertainment website, having social links on the website is almost useless, because we track the number of visitors who actually track on the icons and track on the buttons, and we do not receive any people from the website who would like the page, for example.
Even your studies, like when couldn't you share like studies about Unplugged onto LinkedIn and people could look at that?
We do share this information. We don't have a lot of studies. So, for example, in terms of plagiarism, people would be looking for studies, for some case studies, in a way how a product checked the percentage of similarity in students' papers during the year when there was no product and when the product was introduced. But right now we don't have such test cases, because we have started working with the schools maybe just September last year, because we have been on the market for 1 year only, and decision-making process here is at least 6 months. So it's 6 months up to 1 year before you can get a school signed for a software. And a lot of schools, they already have some agreements with Turnitin, for example, in place, and they have no way to change the system. So we don't have a lot of really great case studies that we could share, but this is definitely something that we are going to do once we have more information and more customers in our portfolio.
Thank you.
Now, talking about distribution, and as I said, this one is a little different, so I'd like to post it as a separate question. So Team 90 here talks about something that makes sense to me, and I'm curious to hear if you agree with that, because I think last time when we talked, you said you're not interested in this option. So, but anyway, Team 90 says here that they believe there would be a huge market for you if you were willing to work directly with the end customers. They say that many students, including school students, university students, would like their work checked for plagiarism individually before they submit it. And so they say here that it may be difficult to get a contract at the school level or at the county level, but there are definitely millions of students in most countries who are interested in using it at the private kind of level. And they say if you were able to have some sort of an app, like a desktop app for Windows and Mac, or maybe a mobile app for macOS or for Android, they say that they have no doubt that many people would be happy to buy that app, especially if it's not expensive, just a couple of dollars. People would just buy it so that before they submit their paper to a professor, they would just upload the file, check it for plagiarism, and then make the corrections and submit it. And they even say that if you were able to get access to stores, like for example here in the United States, they mentioned Best Buy. Best Buy, that's electronics. I'm trying to remember which one in Ukraine is like that. But anyway, a chain of stores that sell all kinds of electronics equipment. And so there you can buy also software, and usually, the software would be kind of a download, but you will buy, like a piece of paper that looks like there is a CD inside, and there is no CD anymore, but there is like access code and whatever registration code. And so they say that there are enough individual people, parents, students, who will want to have that option for themselves. The university website will allow the professor to upload the paper and test it for plagiarism, but it usually doesn't allow them to have a test run of their own work so that they know they're not plagiarizing. And so the question here is, or they recommend to you that maybe you should try to work also with those individuals, because you can literally get millions of them individually without any direct sales or anything like that, just by simply posting your product on app stores and maybe in some physical brick and mortar stores. So I know you're more interested in B2B, but what's your response to that individual, direct sales to customers strategy? Would that be?
We have a separate product that targets students, and we are developing it separately, and we're making it online. So right now on Unplug website, you will find both a section for individual customers and also the section for schools and universities. It happened like this historically on the website, because when you're promoting a website, you have to target visitors who come from search engines, and the search requests, plagiarism detection software, it's the same both for individual customers and for corporate customers. So that's why we right now have two offers on the same website. But right now the situation is going to change. So we are separating Unplug for corporate customers as a separate product. And so we're inquiring how probably you can help us to promote it. And Unplug for individuals is going also to stay as a separate product. And this one, we are marketing it online. But in terms of the users, I can definitely tell you that there are not millions. So the number of requests, of search requests for the system plagiarism detection software, check my document for plagiarism, this is only about 300,000 for English-speaking market. So the number is not so huge. But yes, we are also working on this product. We are working on this selection.
So that option is available, just maybe not. So I'm just curious, of all your customers, I mean, in terms of your revenue, if you're allowed to share that, what percentage do you get from direct sales to end users as opposed to universities and schools? Or do you get a substantial amount at all, or do you see any potential there?
I would say that when you are working online, you might run into problems, for example, with Google, because on one day you're in position 5 and the other day you're position 15. So we're still jumping, and that's why we do not have enough individual customers just to answer these questions. There are still not so many of them, but we are working on the products at the same time, on separate products.
All I can say is that if my students had an option to test their submission for plagiarism before they send it to me, I'm sure many of them would be happy to do that and would be willing to pay, I don't know, $5, $10 per submission, like they don't need it all the time, but would do it from time to time. So as I said, our school does have plagiarism detection software, but it's embedded in Canvas, and students can't really upload their own file just to test and see what's going on there. So they go through, turn it in when they submit it to me, but that's too late to do something about it. So something's telling me that if there was an option to do it online easily and students knew about it, they probably would use it. And so,
I can tell you that Turnitin, they also have a separate product for students that is named Try-Check. And so all the students who are willing to to check individual documents, they can always go to Right-Check. So in the individual niche, we also have a separate product, a separate competitor.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't even know that. So I guess it's a matter of promotion. Very good. Yeah. Now talking about pricing, so I'm not going to get into much details here. So most of the teams say that what you charge now seems very reasonable. Some suggest that the pricing is a little bit adjusted, but it's not a huge deal. One comment that comes up a couple of times is that they say when you work with universities, the fee may need to be fixed regardless of the number of students. They say that sometimes it's difficult to adjust. Sometimes it's, some schools feel like they're paying more. Not everyone is using it. And so they say maybe it should be like a fixed fee per semester or per year, regardless of the size of the school or the number of the students. And so I'm not sure if it's a good idea, but if you maybe can comment on that, just say what your strategy is and why I think that would help this particular team at least that is making that recommendation.
I will make 2 comments on this. The first one, that the license for a student to use the system during the year, so this is very typical for any type of software, also for plagiarism or for licenses for your computers or for licensing for any software. And this is what everyone is used to. So they have been quoted for the number of students, I'm not sure, based for the last 20 years. And secondly, there is also the operational costs that are involved. So we cannot give the same price to a school of 2,000 users and 10,000 users, because there is still a capacity, and there is still, for example, if there are even no internal costs like paying to the search engines that we do, there are still operations, there is hosting, there is capacity of the machine itself. So the price has to be different. For the business to exist, the price has to be different.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of marketing and promotion, again, I see many teams are providing or talking about, social presence and viral marketing. and stuff like that, and approach unions, student unions, and stuff, things of that kind. I'm not sure if there is a point in going deeper into that, but one thing that I would comment on that, if I can, because I see your submissions, many of these are not detailed enough. I see a number of teams saying use social media more, use Facebook, use Twitter. That is all good, but if I were the client, I wouldn't know how to do it based on the information you provide, at least so far. So simply saying that use Facebook, it's not very helpful, because it doesn't tell me how exactly I can do that, especially if I'm not someone who's been using it before for promotion. Like it's more of an idea, but it's not a plan. And so what I would recommend when you guys make those kinds of recommendations, be more specific, literally provide like a step-by-step guide. If you're saying that, advertise here, maybe, provide a link for where, how to access that advertisement platform, maybe give some sort of sample pricing, maybe even tell me how frequently it should be advertised, what, I don't know, keywords or search words should be used. So something that I can take and actually use. Because when you say use Facebook or use Twitter, it doesn't help me in any way, because obviously I thought about that myself before. The reason I'm not using it because either I don't know how or I'm not convinced it's going to work. So it seems to me that more details would be necessary. So I'm not sure if Anastasia wants to comment on that, but as I said, I see some interesting ideas, but not enough substance there.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. So the same relates, to going viral.
Yeah.
There's a problem how to make it. So we do understand that.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's clearly understood that, for example, that we have to work in Twitter, but in each way. In terms of the Facebook, I have doubts about it. Well, maybe we should go in some other social networks, maybe, some social networks or channels where the decision makers are being present, and we'd appreciate these recommendations. Well, otherwise it's like you have to do marketing. So we know that we have to do marketing, just doesn't help a lot.
Yeah.
So we'd appreciate some details if you could share. Thank you.
Right. That would be my recommendation too. Finally, design. So I'll just give some of the examples here. And I thought some of these features you already have, but so there are a few teams that talk about grammar checker. So they say add the functionality that or function that not only checks the submissions for plagiarism, but also checks for writing style and grammar. And so correct those as well and suggest them to the students, especially for individual users. That would be a useful thing. Don't you already have that? Or if you don't, what is the reason for that?
No, we don't have it because Grammar Checker is an absolutely different sort of product. And for example, you have Grammarly also on the market that is being used, I think, by everyone on the market right now. And so it would be like creating the same product like Grammarly has and facing another fierce competition. So it just doesn't fit into the idea of a plagiarism checker. This is a different product.
Can you team up with them in some way and kind of offer your functionality in their product and their functionality in your product and kind of do?
Not really. They wouldn't be interested in cooperation like this because they already have a great business. So they don't need to partner with any company because they are already doing really great.
I don't know about that. I mean, I've used them for some time. I'm not a big fan of Grammarly because eventually they basically were showing me the same things that Microsoft Word kind of does automatically, just in more detail, which I didn't really need. But one thing I wish they did was literally like check for plagiarism live. So not only check my grammar, but also show things that maybe show up as plagiarized. If they had that option, that would be a huge deal. And at the same time, vice versa, if your check was also checking for grammar, maybe using their software or whatever, engine, whatever you call it, I think that would make your platform also more attractive. Again, I have no idea if it would be possible, but if such a partnership occurred, and if, as I said, when Grammarly checks my writing and at the same time tells me if there are plagiarized pieces in it, or when Unplugged checks my document for plagiarism, but at the same time says, oh, by the way, you might want to change, I don't know, some preposition here, or maybe change, I don't know, the spelling of the word here. That would be added value, and maybe there is a way for some sort of a partnership here where you somehow share your functionality and then also share promotion, I guess, in a sense, and because I can see how they could benefit from something which you have to offer on top of what they already do very well. Anastasia, did we lose you? Seems like your picture froze, and I think we lost the connection. There are two more questions that we wanted to discuss, so let's see if it's going to work in a minute or not. So we lost the presenter. Yeah, she dropped out, but that gives me a few minutes to look at the questions that you guys posted. So any other questions related maybe to X-Culture while we're waiting for the presenter? Hopefully she will be back online in a minute. Or any other observations perhaps that you want to share about the project, your teams, things like that. Very good time to ask.
I just have a question. Why not partner with Canvas and make a better deal than, let's say, Turnitin does with them?
That is a very good question. Yeah, I mean, why not? Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's possible, and I have no idea how to do it, but that would be a very valuable partnership.
Because yeah, the tools going directly to like the main source they use.
Yeah. Yeah, if Anastasia goes online, we will ask about that because it seems to me like a very good question. So that's
Great.
definitely a very logical step. Something's telling me they thought about that, and if they're not in that sort of a partnership, maybe there is a reason for that. Maybe Canvas or Blackboard don't want to do it, or maybe there is something else. I cannot imagine that they haven't considered that option, but it'd be interesting to hear why not. And definitely it's something that you might want to suggest in your report, and then maybe better yet, I'm not sure there is a way, if you happen to know someone at that company at Canvas, who might provide some more information. I think that would be, an interesting thing. Anyone else? You know what I suspect could be the problem now? I think we are at the maximum capacity here in the conference room, and I think whoever's trying to log in, including our speaker, probably cannot because we have a limit of 10 people. And so what can happen now is he may not be able to re-access the room unless somebody drops out, and I think that just happened. Any other comments? Yes, please, Mina.
I have some questions, please. The first one was the market size for this market and how many key players in this?
Mm-hmm.
And my second question was their plan for product diversification. Like in 5 years, they are going to continue with another product in a different way, or that's it for this?
Again, very, very good questions. And so looking at the company information in the challenge itself, they provided a little overview of the competition. And so obviously Turnitin is the biggest one worldwide, the oldest one. But they also list 2 or 3 other companies. So there is Urkund and there is Plexcan, and I'm not sure what countries, what markets they cover, but there are apparently other bigger, older players. As far as the plans, again, I have no idea what the plans for the company are, but the company is fairly new. So they've been around only for a few years, and so they're the youngest plagiarism detection company. So I think for now they're focusing specifically on plagiarism detection. But what they're doing differently, or what they're experimenting with, last time we talked a little more about that, they're trying to use some artificial intelligence functionality to do better both plagiarism detection, but also they wanted to do something really cool. They think they will be able to write a code that will allow you to check the authorship of the person. So now the way plagiarism software works is it just checks your document against millions of documents online and in their own databases. And when they see some matching, okay, that's plagiarism. But what it, yes, go ahead. Oh, I thought you wanted to say something. So, but what the software cannot do is to tell who wrote the file. So yes, maybe it's not plagiarized, but maybe you hired someone to write the file for you, and then you submit it as your own work. And they think they can use some artificial intelligence functionality to check the document for kind of writing style, for things that are typical of you as the author, and then they can pretty accurately determine who actually did the file. So while it may not be plagiarized per se, like there is nothing that is copied and pasted, they think they will be able to say that's actually your work or somebody else's. So we have Anastasia back here.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I had a break with the Wi-Fi. So.
No problem. So we talked a little bit about the project in general, and so there were 2 comments that maybe you can address. There was one from Theodora, I think it was, who asked, have you tried teaming up with Blackboard and Canvas? And I suggested that you probably have. And so the question is, how did it go? Is there any promise in that?
It's not like teaming. So you can make integration with the learning management system, and that is what we're doing at the moment. But they are not selling you to the customers. So the only thing that happens that you're paying to the learning management system to get access to the test environment, to test your plugin, to test your integration, and then it doesn't go nowhere because they are particularly interested in selling their own product. And for example, in terms of the Blackboard, they are not really our targeted audience because they already have a built-in plagiarism plugin inside the system, which is called Safe Assign, and which doesn't cost anything additionally for Blackboard users. This is the part of the Blackboard itself.
Good point. Now, there is one, we have only a few minutes left, but there is one very important question that we would like to discuss, and that is that what we call the real life test of the economic viability of the proposal. So again, those of you who are new, what that is we tell students that, okay, you make this wonderful business proposal. You believe that market XYZ is the most promising market, and you believe that this is the best way to reach the decision makers in this market, and this is the message that should be sent to them. We would say to you, okay, this is all good, sounds very reasonable, but why don't you actually try to put this plan to a test and try to approach one of those decision makers yourself and try to sell the product to them. And so if you try to do that, obviously it will be the best test of whether or not your idea holds water, so whether or not it's an actionable, a viable idea. If you succeed, you can put in your resume that you facilitated an international contract, and so it's a big deal. When the time comes for you to look for jobs, that is what will get you a job. Any employer who will see that on your resume will say, okay, this one I'm interested in. And then on top of that, the companies usually are willing to offer you some sort of an aftermarket commission. If you really bring a contract and it's a substantial business-to-business contract, they will be happy to once the contract is executed and the company gets paid, they will be willing and happy to share with you some of those profits. And usually it's like 10% of the first contract or something like that. Moreover, if you do a good job, many companies, partner companies say that maybe we'll even offer you some sort of a permanent deal where you can do it on a permanent basis and we'll pay you on a commission base or some other arrangement. And so Turnitin offers that option. And so they do say that, why don't you actually try to sell this product and see if it works? And so from what I see, one company said that they didn't try it. One team said that they are thinking about it, but haven't tried it yet. But several teams say that, yes, they tried it. They did talk to a number of principals. And so, for example, Team 13, they say that the response so far has been doubt. So they say that they would consider trying it, but they're not sure and they want a demo. And when that happens, I guess they just contact you, right, and ask for a demo. So if you guys from Team 13 are watching it now live or in recording, yes, if you have anyone who seems remotely interested and wants a demo, just talk to the company. And then Team 31 says, we attempted to get the product out there, but with the lack of information that we have, it was very difficult to sell it. We had some institutions we spoke to that seemed to be interested, but we couldn't provide enough information to make the sale. And so I'm not sure what to tell here. I mean, obviously, it's not easy to train people so that they know what exactly needs to be said. But Anastasia, so what would be your recommendation? Let's say there is a team, and let's say they go to a dean, and the dean says, "Yeah, I think I'm interested." So what should be then the next step to make it happen, provided that students may not have all the information about the company to answer all of the questions that the dean or the principal or whoever else may have? What's the best way to?
They can provide my email address directly, and usually I get in touch with all the incoming, with the potential customers from the email within 1 hour latest. And so just give my email address. We will be in touch with potential customer. We will run the demo. We will send all the materials. And then in case we close the deal, we will pay you your commission. So
right. Now when you say give your email address, so this time we're not sharing the email addresses with the students directly because we don't want you to be bombarded with questions all the time. Would you like us to do that, or should we stick with the current system where they contact admin@xculture.org and then we forward the message to the company? Or would you like us to share the email directly?
I say I have no problems students using my email address for any school, college, universities that might seem to be interested. So I will provide all the information needed. And we can also, in case you provide, for example, the contact who is being interested, I will get in touch with the contact right away. If we close the deal, like I have said, you're getting your commission because this was your referral.
Right. Okay, we'll do that. I'll probably have to put a disclaimer or some sort of a guideline. As I said, I'm always a little uneasy with sharing the emails of the like you are very busy, and there will be 4,000 students working on it starting now because the late track just started, and so it's a big one, so it's much bigger. And even if only a very small percentage of the students decides to send you an email or ask something, you will be overflooded with emails. So what we do is we ask them to send the questions to admin. And because we have a database of frequently asked questions, and because most of the questions are repetitive, in most cases it's an old question, we have the answer, we can just copy and paste the answer and send it back to the student without bothering the busy executives and busy company owners. But we'll see, maybe we'll add Unplug's contacts directly, just make it clear that don't send your questions here, questions we probably can handle it here at the admin office. But if you have more serious inquiries about especially business needs, then you can go ahead and contact the company directly.
I can say that I don't mind answering any questions as long as this helps us to make a sale. So
be careful, because as I said, once you have a large crowd, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that sounds reasonable. Let's try it and see how it goes. If it's too many questions, maybe some irrelevant, we can always remove the email address. We are pretty much out of time. Any other questions from the audience or any other comments, Anastasia, that you would like to make?
I see there is one question from the student in Netherlands.
Yeah.
Isn't like only interested in getting schools, universities as their customers? I think that it relates to the topic that we have discussed earlier today in regards whether we're selling to universities, for example, only. It's not like this. We also have a second product, a separate direction, where we are selling for individuals, which are mostly students and sometimes writers for the bloggers or novelists, but mostly students.
But also schools as far as, K through 12, right? So it's not only universities, higher education, but also schools for kids. Most of them also use some sort of software detection software. So it doesn't have to be only college, university. It can be also lower level or for younger kids.
Yeah, for high school as well.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you so much. It's been very educational as always for me. I can brag that the school that I went to 20 years ago, where I got my bachelor's degree in Ukraine, so they're now your client. So the dean of the school I saw posted a big, post about, now we're going to use Unplug, and before they didn't use anything. So now they're your clients. So that makes it even more interesting for me personally. I'm not sure if the University of North Carolina system will ever switch to Unplug. So they seem to be married to Turnitin now. But who knows, maybe one day also. So, but at least some of the schools that I went to, and I have no idea what University of Texas in Dallas and University of Calgary in Canada use, my other schools that I went to. So I'm not sure what system they use, so I can't remember now. But at least one of my own alma maters is using Unplug, so which is a good thing.
I just love the way you say it, married to Turnitin. It just sounds exactly the way it is.
Well, yeah, I guess, in a relationship that is not, easy to change. So I guess, yeah. And I have no idea how those decisions were made. We will have, so in the early track, there were no students from my university, but in the late track, we have about 300 students from the University of North Carolina. And so I have no doubt that many of them will try to talk to the dean here at the business school, maybe also to the deans of other campuses. We have 16 campuses around the state. So hopefully by the end of this track, we will know for sure what they use, why they use it, and what would it take them to switch to Unplug. So, and I think one of the reasons we may be using Unplug is, Turnitin, because it's part of Canvas now. And so I think they just don't have a choice, but I'm not sure. I don't know.
Oh, I can tell you that we're also part of Canvas, and we're also part of every learning management system available right now.
There you go. So maybe make some arrangements. Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. So the recording will be posted a little later for everyone who couldn't attend in live. So I saw that we had about 50 people watching us at some time, and there were about 10 people here. So thank you so much. Next time, be even more active. Don't be shy. Ask your questions, and hopefully you will choose this company. It's a very good company, very promising company. And like some of the other more established companies we have, this one is new, still growing. So whatever recommendations you can make, you can literally see them implemented and affecting the company. So yeah, consider this one. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.